Everybody is individual. Everybody has their own superpowers. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has limitations. Everybody has weaknesses. And getting to know the personality and the person behind the label is always the best way to go about anything. In all honesty, it found me. I tried rowing briefly at college. I was at a college for blind and visually impaired children in Worcester, and it was a wonderful time in my life, having had a very tricky education in mainstream school, being the one disabled child in a school of 800. And I tried rowing and I had a go, and it was really good fun. So when I went to university, I went to my local rowing club, to the university, and I said, I'd like to learn to row, please. And they said, I'm really sorry, we're not doing learn to row courses at the moment. And I went, oh, well, I'll give that up as a bad job. And I was just a very unhealthy student doing, bicep curls at the student union bar. And then in my second year of uni, I got a phone call one day from a man called Simon. And he said, Naomi, I hear you've tried rowing at college, and I hear, that you quite enjoyed it. Would you come and trial for the Great Britain Disabled Rowing Team? And I went, yeah. Yeah, but why? And he said, well, in all honesty, you tick some boxes. You're tall, you're a girl, and you can't see very well. And we need you because we have no girls, and it has to be a mixed crew, and we've only got boys. And I went, okay, yeah, fine. So I went down to London and trialled. Happened to be fast enough, and then 4 months later was packed onto a plane with my team and a bag full of GB kit and sent off to Spain to compete in my first World Championships, and we crossed the finish line first. So world champion in a sport I've been doing for 4 months. It was quite a crazy learning curve. So it was the opportunity more than anything that for the first time in my life somebody had said to me, you can because you're registered blind. Not you can't, not we're going to try and make it work, not despite the fact. It was you can, because of your disability, represent your country. And I was like, well, yeah, cool. I'm there, like, brilliant. And then obviously the rowing career developed, became a Paralympic sport in 2005, and then Beijing was suddenly on the cards. There are many things that test your resilience as a rower or as a sports person. For rowing, it's often repeatedly getting up at silly o'clock and rowing with hands covered in blisters. But there are certain situations that will test your emotional resilience and your mental resilience more than others. Now, in 2010, we'd become a Paralympic sport. We debuted at the Beijing Paralympic Games. And because of that, people want to be in the sport now. You've got Paralympic status, you're on that biggest stage. And more people turn up at trials who have disabilities, who have maybe rowed for a while, and they want to see if they can make the crew. Somebody showed up at 2010 trials who was just the most phenomenal athlete. She had the same disability as me, so visually impaired, registered blind, and she had a massive score on the rowing machine, and she was lifting heavy weights, and she had massively strong thighs, and she was just fit and brilliant. And I thought, oh God, it's only 2 years to London. Like, how am I gonna do this? And I ended up putting a lot of my time and energy into trying to be another version of her. I almost went back to this little girl at school that wanted to be liked and wanted to fit in and wanted to be as good as other people. And I ended up wasting so much energy on something I had no control over. So needless to say, didn't make it into the 2010 World Championships because she beat me by half a second to a seat in that crew. But I went away, trained on my own with some support from Marlow Rowing Club, that was then my local club, and really had to focus in on, okay, what am I good at? I can control what I'm doing training wise. I can control the scores I have on the rowing machine and my diet, my sleep patterns, how I look after myself, but I cannot control what this girl's doing. And there's no point in me trying. And it was a really hard lesson to go, all I need to do is beat her on trials day. I don't need to do anything else. Just keep it simple, take the emotion out of it, focus on the facts, beat her on trials day. That's it. So then when it came to London, I beat her by 8.5 seconds and I went to London. The Guinness World Record was quite a a crazy one. It was, I think, quite a lot bigger than I expected it to be. At 2012, I was a group of 5, and obviously the coach, then 6. Obviously, she couldn't row the race with us, but she was on the bank watching and probably biting her nails. And I thought, I want to do something that's just mine, but I want to do it for the right reasons. And that was, for me, sitting in a coffee shop, having a conversation with the lady who ran a charity that I was patron for. I want to do something for you. I want to do something to raise the awareness of the ability of people with a disability. And I think it's a really good idea to row the length of the navigable Thames from Lechlade to Gravesend, because it's 165 miles. And if I do it in a single sculling boat, then other people will have to steer me. So it's going to be a sense of trust and good relationship building, that the people who steer me, that I get on with and understand, and we can work together, but also a test of endurance. It tested me. It absolutely tested every fibre of my being. I think it was just 6 seconds short of 48 hours I did it in. And one of the things it taught me more than anything is that sometimes you can see your goal, you know where you're headed, and there are people around you that can help you, that can cheer you on, that can offer a service or a specialism that you don't have. But really, there's no one else that can get you there except for you. When you're tired, when you're sore, when you're hungry, when you're emotional, when you've been rowing for 45 hours with half an hour's sleep, the only person that can pick up and carry on is you. Nobody can do it for you. Even though they can all see your goal, they can say, it's so close, I can touch it. But you're the only one that can pick up your oars and go again. And that was I think that was the point really for me. I learned a lot about myself in that process, how to do things on my own, but also who to trust and who are the people around you that are going to shout for you and support you. But yeah, no one else but you can achieve what you want to achieve. When I was at school, I was the one child really with a disability. I was in mainstream school from primary right the way through to the age of 16, and it was tough. And I was the blind girl. I was the girl sat at the front of the class. I was the girl who had the learning assistant and they had everything in large print. And as you can imagine, the technology in the 80s and 90s wasn't anywhere near as good as it is now. So everything was on A3 paper, and the colour photocopier wasn't very good, and I can't see colour anyway. And it was just all it was really frustrating, because I'm not daft, I could keep up, but I didn't have the right kind of support to be able to excel at anything. But I was really good at art, and that confused everybody. But you're meant to be blind. How come you're better at art than we are? Because I've learned to play to my strengths. I can't see colour, so I didn't use it. I can't see much detail, so I didn't use it. I just learned to play to my strengths. And my safe place, my happy place, was in the spare room at home, listening to a talking book and filling up hundreds of sketch pads of just drawings. I just love drawing and painting and creating. So for me, I always felt like the odd one out. When I was in my first school photograph, I decided to take my glasses off because I thought I looked different to everybody else. I'm going to take my glasses off because this is a 5-year-old's logic, right? Jam jar bottom thickness, tinted, make my eyes look like they're out of a goldfish bowl. I took them off, and for my first school photograph, when I got it back, I cried because my right eye was looking that way and at my nose instead of at the camera. And I thought, no matter what I do, I'm never going to look normal. People say, what do you want to be when you leave school? And yeah, I wanted to be an artist, but I think in there somewhere, there was this little girl who said, I don't want to be the blind girl anymore. I want to be me. I want the Naomi to come first. And I want my disability to be a facet of me, but not front and center. And so I often say to people, can you tell? And they go, no. And I'm like, yes. I can't tell that you can't see very well, which is great until I need some help, and then I have to kind of explain, but it's absolutely fine. And I think for me, that proving people wrong, proving that they're going to give you a label, but that label doesn't mean you just fit in the same box as everybody else. Everybody is individual. Everybody has their own superpowers. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has limitations. Everybody has weaknesses. And getting to know the personality and the person behind the label is always the best way to go about anything. So I know being a Paralympian defines me as being disabled, but it also allowed me to do incredible things because it let me into a sport and they said you can because of your eyes. When I speak to an audience, I am telling them a story. I'm taking them with me from playground to podium and beyond to that Guinness World Record. And it's not because I just want them to hear a good story. I want them to be able to relate to my experiences. I want them to be able to say, oh, yeah, well, that sounds familiar. Maybe I can input that into how I do this project or how I talk to my children, or, you know, everyone can relate to my story. And I know that sounds crazy because so many people say, how can I relate to a Paralympic gold medalist? You're a gold medalist, for goodness sake. How can I relate to that? I'm never going to achieve that. But it's all relative. The end of my story, I could have been a hugely successful single mum, self-made millionaire, an astronaut, famous musician, but I'm none of those things. It's the story that got me to that 2012 start line and to that podium and beyond that is the relatable bit. Everybody's got challenges and they're all relative to you. They're all relative to your life and what you've been through. And I just want people to understand that they can achieve anything they want to achieve with the right network, with the right support, with the right goals, understanding why you're doing things and what you're pushing for and who's in the boat with you, who wants to help you get there. But I'd like people to leave with a sense of hope that they can go off and just do what they set their mind to.